1.6 million. Is it enough to retire? Most boomers and Gen Xers are terrified of running out of money in retirement, and social media, is that the right place to get your financial advice? All that and more on today's episode of Elevate Your Wealth.
And now, Elevate Your Wealth with Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins.
Welcome into Elevate Your Wealth, powered by Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. Your hosts are Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins, also joined by Steve Flynn this week. 42 plus years combined experience, and it's all about getting you ready, getting their clients ready for retirement. They're certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick. Always a pleasure to jump on and talk retirement. And as we always do, we'll start with this. Casey, you're up first. How was the week?
Oh, it's been a great week. It's been really nice. Had a little rain roll back in, but it's been really nice here in Seattle. We're still rooting for the Mariners, and only positive talk on the Mariners today. So we'll take what we can get with them. We're still excited about the team and see what they can do in the rest of the season. And great stuff around the office. We've had a lot of folks come in that we've been able to help recently, which is always really exciting and very rewarding for us, right? It's really nice to be able to help the families that we get to play a small part in their retirement, and hopefully bring some nice stories here to the radio today too. So we'll talk about couple of those today.
All right, Mark, what about you, big guy?
Yeah, football season's cranking up, and we got some football fans in our office as well, and so we're big Mariner and Seahawk fans. So I'm excited about football season, and like Casey mentioned, we're just having a nice time in the office. We've really got some cool things happening with some new additions to our team that is bringing some things that we think are really going to help elevate your wealth. So again, we're looking forward to that. So again, we're just here to help people. And again, I just want to thank all the listeners that are listening today, and maybe on a regular basis. We thank you guys very much for calling in, coming to see us, because that's what it's all about, is education. And we truly want to help people have the retirement that they dream so long and so hard about.
Yeah, well, and speaking of new additions, Steve Flynn in studio with us. He's actually been in studio for several weeks, but he's actually going to chime in on the show this week. So, Steve, welcome. Maybe Casey, just why the addition of Steve? You guys are growing. Mark, you can chime in too, but we kind of have this James Bond feel to the show now.
That's right. Yeah, his accent is really elevating the experience of the show, which is nice to have. So, we've just we've been so busy around the office. We've made some new additions here, so we've got folks in different pieces. We've got Kelvin, he's our CPA that's on staff. We've got Phil managing all of our media, social media, things like that. We've got a couple other folks, and we've added Steve as an advisor because we've realized that we've been so busy. We'll take this opportunity to say thanks to all the listeners, thanks to the folks that trust us, that we've been entrusted with their retirement planning, their future. And we wanted to add somebody valuable to the team that can really support that vision and support what we're doing here at Elevated. And Steve fits that role wonderfully. He fits in really well. He's a sharp guy. Has a background at some other firms as well, so it kind of brings some other experience to the table, and we're really excited to have him.
And I got 007 sitting right next to me now.
I was going to say, with that accent, what is that, South Seattle?
Exactly. Yeah, the south side of Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Well, Steve, we welcome you, and I know the guys. Certainly the team happy to have you on board. So exciting stuff. So here on the program, what we do is we go around and we find some of the latest articles that are out there dealing with planning, dealing with being prepared for what is going to be your future, your retirement. And then we have these discussions, these lively discussions. And guys, you've come up with some articles today that we're going to hit. And I want to start with this one. I'm tired of corporate America, in quotations. And then my wife and I have $1.65 million. I'm currently sitting at 61. Can I retire already? Are you getting a lot of questions, I guess, from potential clients and current clients that, hey, I want to go early?
Morgan, this is something we run into quite a bit. There are a lot of our people that come into our office, and that's exactly what they want to know. Do I have enough, or can I retire right now? And that's the $1 million question. In this case, they've done a fairly good job of saving. They have a little over $1.5 million saved up, but he's just tired of corporate America, and we understand that. We've got some big companies. We're big with Boeing up here. We've got a lot of Boeing clients, and a lot of people are getting frustrated with just their jobs. The way everything is going right now, there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of volatility. And so people want to know if they have a set amount of money, are they going to be able to retire? And for a lot of people that come in, they think million is their mark, right? And we know that isn't always the case, because there's so much we don't know about each client until they divulge everything to us, right? And $1 million might be good for Steve or me, but might not be good for Phil or Casey here, right? So again, it's very unique to their situation, and so it's all going to be dependent on their spending, right? Their cash flow needs. Maybe their debt load. So there's a lot of things that we've got to get information on to be able to put together a plan that's going to make them be successful in retirement, because it is a lot easier said than done, right? And that's the one thing. We do not want to have somebody have a retirement that ends up blowing up because we didn't project maybe longevity risk that we needed to deal with. There's so many other factors that we'll talk about that's going to help to lead to a successful retirement.
Right, and it's interesting, this article. 1.6 million, 1.65 is what the article mentions. It says that the husband's 61, the wife is 57, and he's trying to figure out if he can retire now. The wife is already retired, essentially. And, I think the big thing is how much income do you want? That's really what this boils down to, because 1.65, you're not going to be able to start your Social Security for a number of years. It does mention in the article that the wife has a pension, although it's relatively small. But you know what? That's still more guaranteed income than most people have when they move into retirement, right? So we'll take whatever pensions we can. But the point being, it all depends on the income, the outflow that you're trying to have from your plan. And so just to kind of fast forward, the article essentially says, the advice that's given in the article says, well, try to wait until Medicare age. And then it cites a few things. Number one, the cost of medical, right? So if you're retiring before 65, there's going to be a substantial cost there, right? I mean, we factor in $1,000 a month per person, just kind of as a boilerplate number. It could be a little higher, it could be a little lower, but it's a good marker. But then it also cites, it talks about this individual's income, and it says, well, you're going to be missing out on these commissions that he earns and the income that he earns and things like that. And, I'm going to take exception to that a little bit, because that may be the case. But if you do have enough money to retire now, you don't really want to stay at work because of how much you could earn, because that's a slippery slope, because that's always going to be the case, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, now I'm 70. But man, I could earn X amount more if I work 5 more years. Well, of course, right? The longer you work, in theory, the more you have in your retirement accounts, right? If you're doing it right. So that kind of goes on forever. So if the goal is to retire early and medical cost is part of that conversation, it's okay to pay the medical cost if you're retiring early. We have clients, there's a client that comes to mind where the wife is 50 and the husband's 60. And he's going to work 5 more years because that's what he'd like to do. But she had a very stressful job and wanted out. And so she retired at 50. And they're sailing off into the sunset. They've got a great plan. And they saved really well. And they've planned things out. But medical was built into the plan. So I think it's really unique and it's really situational. And I struggle with this idea of, well, just keep working because you could earn more and you could earn more. I don't like that idea.
Yeah, well, and to go on top of that, you could work and work and work, and then what if your health changes like a light switch and you don't get to enjoy any of your retirement, right? Because how many times do we talk about the slow-go years or the go-go years, the slow-go and no-go years, right? So waiting isn't necessarily the right thing. A lot of us want to do some fun stuff in retirement. The longer you wait, the more you might, have a health issue come up to where you're not going to be able to do much, right? We're dealing with some clients right now. So if you're out there listening right now and you've been thinking about, retirement, you've got questions about where's your income going to come from, what are you going to do when it comes to taxes and tax planning, maybe you've got some estate planning questions, please pick up the phone, let Elevated have a conversation with you. Keep your checkbook at home. All we want to do is have a conversation. Please give us a call.
I mean, everybody's different. You need to approach planning that way. It's going to be customized to you. If you've got any questions about what is going to be your retirement, get on these appointments. They're complimentary, meaning there's no charge to it. You're leaving the checkbook at home, as Mark just said. There's no obligation to become a client. This is a great way to get to know Elevated Financial Management, get to know their team, get to know, they're going to get to know you and what you want out of your retirement. And if you want to go forward with the planning process, you certainly do that. But this first one, it's on the house. 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. Again, just talking about, a lot of people put numbers out there when it comes to retirement. Oh, I need to get to this number, this number, this number. Well, you got to consider long-term care, health care. What's your lifestyle going to be like? If you go early into retirement, all of these are going to be puzzle pieces that you can put together as a plan. But it takes that meeting. It takes that conversation. Put your cards on the table. To grab one of our complimentary appointments, simply call 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. Helping Seattle retire. That's what we do. 866-668-3625. We've got more coming up on the other side. Again, it's all about the articles that we've found during the week. And this next one, most boomers and Gen Xers terrified about running out of money in retirement. Is that you? Stay tuned. We are back on Elevate Your Wealth. In Seattle, it's always about being ready for that big day. That day you walk away from work and you head off into what is going to be your golden years, your retirement. We're powered by Elevated Financial Management. That's where you can find our hosts, Mark Stimpson, Casey Elkins, Steve O'Flynn, and a website I need to tell you about. It is a resource, EFMNW.com. All letters, EFMNW.com. There are links to the TV show, our radio shows are in podcast form. Really good information on retirement, background information on the team, and it's always about helping Seattle get ready for retirement. Certified financial fiduciaries, yes, they are. I'm Morgan Patrick. My pleasure, as always, to jump on, talk retirement, the latest articles about what we're all concerned about, and that is, heading towards what we want to be, that retirement we've always dreamed of. Takes a plan. We'll give you an opportunity to get on their calendar here in just a little bit. So this next article, gentlemen, most boomers and Gen Xers absolutely positively terrified about running out of money in retirement, even if they're already in retirement. So they're on that fixed income if they're in retirement. So yeah, I can understand the concern there. But those that are still working, they're concerned about not having enough money. And you guys wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, this is something that just, it comes up over and over and over again. And I will say it seems like every study that is conducted for retirees or pre-retirees, this is always their number one concern. I mean, this is brought up all the time, and this is why we're always talking about how much income do you want, because it's not about how much you've saved. If you've saved $10 million, but you want $800,000 a year or $1 million a year, that's not going to happen, right? So it really isn't about the account value. It's about how much income you can create from that account. That's the biggest thing, and that's what will give you the freedom to go do what you want to do in retirement. And so I know the other guys have things to say here too, but I just want to highlight this. It mentions that this is the number one concern that's always brought up. And then it says this, it says it's a reasonable concern because a 2024 Morningstar study, right? Morningstar, huge analytical company, very well respected, predicted that 45% of Americans will run out of money in retirement.
Ouch.
So that's why people are concerned,
number.
right?
Yeah.
And so it makes sense that they're worried about this. And then it brings out another study. It says that 54% of baby boomers and Gen X combined are fearful about outliving their savings, which is up from 48% last year. And so, again, this just continues. And I think the biggest thing behind this, number one, is we're always afraid of what we don't understand and what we don't know, right? That's the case. We talk about the boogeyman in the closet. or the boogeyman under the bed. Sometimes you got to open it and you got to confront it. And the way to confront it is to get a plan, right? Is to have a plan put together to figure out how much income you have. But this is a big concern, and we get why.
In fact, one of the things, there was a statement made, and I just want to read it because it's so right on the money for me. And this, one of the people that was polled said he is anxious all the time about the money he and his wife spend in retirement, often asking himself, what kind of curveball are we going to be thrown? Mm-hmm. See, and we're seeing that with clients that have a health issue come up. We could go on. And I just think this is something we all need to be concerned about. I was just wondering too, Steve, you got a thought on this?
Yeah, it's the same. We see it quite often where people are looking at their retirement accounts more than they really should be. Yeah. And when the market goes down, they get really, really anxious.
Yeah, they do. That's it. And it's because if the market is where you're going to produce your income and it goes down, that's going to be scary, right? I mean, that's the same as turning on the news and seeing that your employer filed for bankruptcy. It's that same kind of feeling, right? So you have to make sure that your income is taken care of. Here's another quote from the article that I thought was so good. Talking about a financial firm here, it says, I've been told by our advisors that a number of their well-to-do clients struggle to spend money in retirement out of fear they'll spend too much. And that, I think that's from the president of Nationwide. So this is what's so important. If you don't know how much you can spend, you're going to underspend, right? And if you don't know how much you can spend, maybe you will overspend, right? So it comes down to how much can you spend, how much income do you need, and what does it take to establish a certain baseline of living and then allow for some fun on top of that, right? We don't want you to have a retirement. You just sit around and watch TV all day. So what does it take to travel? What does it take to do the things with your grandkids? That all needs to be built into the budget. And just like we talked about in our last segment, if you want to retire before 65 and you're going to be on the hook for medical, that just needs to be built in. It's not that you can't do it, right?
Exactly.
Maybe you can, but you got to have the conversation to figure it out.
Yeah, how many times do we sit with clients in our conference rooms and we look at our board that has red, yellow, and green buckets on it, and they may have $1 million in the red bucket, but exactly what you just mentioned, Casey, they're so worried about spending that that they'll only live or do things based on their income. If their income is $5,000 a month, they pare their life down to that $5,000 a month and will not touch the $1 million that could add so much more joy and happiness to their life, but they're so worried they're going to run out of money. And that's one of our top goals, is showing people who have been good savers how they can become great spenders. Yeah. And so many don't want to do it because they are so worried about running out of money because they don't have a true plan. They've got some buckets, but they don't know how to access them, when to access them, or what's the best way to access them. And that's what we want to help everybody with.
That's it. And when you look at this nest egg that you've saved for retirement, it's kind of similar to your paycheck. It's just on a grander scale, right? If you bring in a paycheck, it's $10,000 a month. Not all 10,000 of that goes towards your mortgage. Not all of it goes to food. Not all of it goes to travel. Not all of it goes to all these things, right? It's spread out. And it's the same with this retirement nest egg. People get used to having this big account in their 401k and it's growing. But ultimately, we have to take that money and allocate it towards specific things. We take a portion and we create income. We take a portion and we create growth. We take a portion and we deal with long-term care. We take a portion and we deal with X, Y, and Z, right? Whatever that is. And so we have to, that's what the plan allows for. But it takes time, of course, to put that together. But the reason this article hits so hard for us is because this is what we are constantly fighting day in and day out, because we see folks all the time that have been phenomenal savers, that have saved $2, $3, $4 million for their retirement, maybe more. But they're worried about spending it. And we get why, because there's the money doesn't really have a purpose. It's just been sitting there growing, which is great. But when you move into retirement, that money needs a different purpose. And you got to make it work for you so that you can go do what you want.
Elevate Your Wealth. You're tuned to it, powered by Elevated Financial Management. We're going to open up appointments with the team, and they're complimentary. But all three, Steve, Mark, and Casey, hitting on just the anxiety that's out there, worrying about the money and whether or not it's going to be there for them in retirement. And again, running out of money is the number one fear. Guys, I'll just ask this blanket question to all three of you. because they are so focused on growth, are they not diversified enough? And that's where the fear is.
Yeah, and that's something we talk again with every client about, because they could come in and have a pie chart when we look at their investments, and it's a kaleidoscope, right, of different colors, but it's unbelievable. Then they believe they have diversification. But then when we really analyze it, all of those different funds are owning the very same stocks. We call it overlap. So they're not diversified. And that's such an important point, Morgan. You've got to be diversified. And we're going to do that in several different ways. But just because you have a lot of different mutual funds or a lot of different stocks does not mean you are diversified. And that's something we don't want people to get worried and scared about.
Yeah, that's it, right? People see a lot of holdings, right? The people see a lot of holdings. They see a lot of different fund names. But you know what? I'll say those fund names, they kind of cloak what's really there, right? And I'm not saying that's necessarily intentional, but the fund has to have some kind of name. But if you own 10 different funds, do they own all different stocks inside, or are a lot of them the same that the other 9 funds own, right? And that's what we see a lot of, is that very regularly people have 10 different funds and they own a lot of the same underlying stock. And so there is a lack of diversification, right? And especially if you own an index fund. If you own an index fund and you've got this company that grows, like Apple, let's say their stock goes up, or Facebook or something, then you end up holding more of it because you own the index, and the index is weighted to that stock, right? So your diversification is actually dwindling in that circumstance. So if you have questions about that and you want to find out how much overlap you have, you want to figure out what type of risk you're taking, you want to be educated about your investments, that's exactly what these appointments are set for. If you would like to get a plan put together for retirement to figure out how much you can spend, are you on the right track, or do you need to do something different? What can you do to lessen your taxes? What is Medicare going to look like for you? When should you start Social Security? All those things that are swirling in your mind, that will all be discussed when you come in and have a conversation with us. It's completely complimentary. It's no obligation. You can leave your checkbook at home, and exactly who you hear on the radio is exactly what you're going to get when you come into the office. So don't hesitate. Pick up the phone. Give us a call.
Look, we have a lot of fun on this program, but we do hit nerves when we talk about these subjects, and we get it. You're anxious. This is your opportunity right now to kind of clear the air, kind of see where you are with your retirement, or maybe lack thereof a plan. Maybe you're just sitting on that portfolio and you're really anxious, or maybe you're halfway down the path and you need that second opinion. Grab it right now. 866-668-3625. No cost to this appointment, no obligation to this appointment. You're not agreeing to become a client. Get to know Elevated Financial Management. Call and grab an appointment. 866-668-3625. 866-668-3625. When we return on Elevate Your Wealth, we're going to talk social media. I don't know if Mark's got a TikTok channel, but we're going to find out. That's coming up next. We are back on Elevate Your Wealth, powered by Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. That's exactly where you can find Mark Stimpson, Casey Elkins, Steve O'Flynn, and it's about helping you get ready for what is going to be your retirement. They got over 42 years combined experience in the retirement planning business, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for their retirement. They're certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick. It's a pleasure to jump on and talk about the latest articles in and around planning, in and around being prepared, but also highlighting some things out there that can derail a retirement plan or your pathway to retirement. So social media, I don't know about you guys, it's kind of scary. We all have smartphones. You talk around your smartphone, you're having a conversation at work about some particular topic. It's amazing how it just suddenly appears in your social media feed.
Yeah.
Now, along those lines, man, I tell you, if you want financial advice, just say something around your phone and you're going to get a bunch of it.
Yeah. This is something that we're all a little worried about. We know how powerful AI is becoming right in our space. And one of the things that, you hear, people can just go and use a robot, basically, robo-advisors, right? Picking up pace, especially with Gen Xers. And all I want to say to this is there is so much involved in true retirement planning on the emotional piece. You're not going to get any of that from a robo-advisor. You just can't. It's impossible to do it. People may think that. And we sometimes look at the advice that, I don't want to just necessarily pick on Susie Orman or Dave Ramsey, but some of the statements they make in what they talk about, we would put in the ridiculous category. And so we need to be careful about where we're getting our advice, because anybody can, as Morgan just mentioned, can click on anything and get stuff to pop up. Does it make it truth, or does it make it reality? And I think this is something all of us as true advisors need to be worried about. I think you got a thought on this, Steve.
Yeah, they're calling them finfluencers. So, I mean, are you going to put your trust and retirement into a finfluencer? So they describe the finfluencer as someone who's using their online presence to sow distrust in the tried and true long-term strategies that can help people prepare for retirement.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And I think this is so important because I'll tell you what. So if you go on TikTok or Instagram and you decide, I'm going to look up things about becoming a day trader, there are hundreds or thousands, maybe even millions of the world's best day traders that will teach you how to do it just the way that they do it. And all you have to do is buy their course, right? And they're going to teach you everything they know. And sure, that makes a lot of sense, right? You're one of the most successful day traders around. And instead of actually going and day trading yourself and making all these millions that supposedly you make, you're going to sell a course for $30 a month, right? Because that's real lucrative in comparison. So it just doesn't make sense, right? And I think that's the thing, is that we're inundated with these people that make these statements, and there's a lot of big names there, right? There are a lot of big names, and I don't want to get into anybody specifically, but I'll say that I've seen a few videos where people are talking about you get to pull the money out of your 401k tax-free as long as you wait until you're age 62. That couldn't be further from the truth. That's not even remotely accurate. You never get to take all the money out of your 401k tax-free unless it's a Roth 401k. Right. And 62 has nothing to do with it at all. That's irrelevant to the conversation. So it's actually age 59 and a half where you can start to access those funds. So my point being that that's really kind of a basic thought. That's right. A very basic truth in the financial planning world. And even that has gotten wrong on some of these videos. And or you hear these other things about, these promises of 12% returns on an annual basis, just leave your money there, or, invest all your money in real estate and get 100 rental homes and things like that. And I'm like, it doesn't make sense, right? It's almost like they're trying to talk to other billionaires, right? So that's not the type of advice that the regular person needs, right?
In fact, I love this statement. Following one-size-fits-all guidance can help people get out of debt and better live within their means. But the complexity of crafting tax-efficient income strategy that balance lifestyle with longevity risk makes retirement planning a whole different matter. And I just love what he goes on to say. He says, not all advice on the radio or social media is bad, but there is a lot of both uneducated and unscrupulous actors that use these venues to spread, well, I just call it nonsense, because that's really what it is, as you just mentioned. And this is something that we're very concerned about, because it makes people possibly, when they find out that advice is bad, they tend to lock up, right? Then they're not going to trust anybody, including people that care about this and do the right thing and do planning based on solid math. It really does boil down to math, right? And so those that want to do the pie in the sky, like you just mentioned about, Casey, they're causing a real issue for true planners and for the public in general. And I think we all need to be cognizant of this and very cautious when it comes to listening to online advice sometimes.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's kind of a weird world that we live in. You see these people making these statements, and the only reason that they can make these extreme statements is because they're not financial advisors, right? If they were financial advisors, they'd get in trouble for saying what they're saying.
Yes, exactly.
So they would be taken off the air, right? I mean, we couldn't do that kind of thing. So it's really important that you figure out who you're getting that information from. So, Morgan, how do folks get in touch if they want to find out more?
Absolutely. I mean, work with a fiduciary, work with a professional, have a partner in this, lean in, be able to ask questions. These are complimentary appointments that we open up during our radio show, and there's no obligation, meaning you can come in and test drive Elevated Financial Management. If it's a good fit, man, you go for it. If you're not feeling it, no obligation. You can walk. 866-668-3625. You're being inundated with information. It's all over your social media feed. What do you know is good or bad? You don't. Talk with a professional. This is your opportunity right now. Grab one of our appointments, 866-668-3625, 866-668-3625. Sit across the table from a real human being, a fiduciary, and map out that retirement planning. So back to the social media guys. I mean, we think we're Warren Buffett. I mean, we see all these different numbers. We think we can click here, go there, do that, get the information, and take care of business. But, man, I tell you, so many things happen, and there's a domino effect. You do one thing here, it's going to start to roll downhill really fast. So working with a pro is absolutely paramount.
It is. And, there's something in this article that I thought was so good. It says it's called the Google effect, and then it says entitled Confidence Without Competence. And, oh, man, we see that a lot on social media, right? There's a lot of people that are real confident, and it's hard to figure out why. Because it doesn't seem to be that there's a lot of understanding behind it. So again, right, it's all about who you get your information from.
And fiduciary, that's the key word in all of these conversations. If they got your best interests at heart. I like this takeaway here. So it says, real financial planning experts know that the stock market is, and I quote, the single greatest tool of wealth creation the world has ever seen. Doesn't that sound good?
Yeah, it does sound good. Yeah.
And working with a professional, they know the importance of diversification and risk management in the retirement planning process, especially, and we speak about it quite often, the importance of mitigating the sequence of returns risk in the retirement red zone, as they say.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I appreciate you bringing that out, Steve, because it really does matter in what order you experience the returns of the market, right? And again, a lot of the advice that's given is very general, right? It's just kind of this general information. Well, if you invest and you're going to average a 10% return forever, but is that the main goal? Is it just always about return? Because eventually it becomes about income, right? So it may be about return when you're 35, 40, 45 and you're building for retirement. But once you get to retirement, I promise you, it is no longer about return. It's about getting the income that you need. And so if you can't generate the income reliably, sustainably, then the return is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, and this is why this article is really, really powerful, because income has to be, which we focus on, the green bucket in our office, has to be the bedrock for our planning with our clients, right? Because if you don't have the confidence based on your income, then you're not going to want to spend the bucket, the red bucket, the money that's in the market. You're not going to feel good about it, because you are going to go right back to the old ways, which is worried about running out of money. And that's just something we don't want our clients to go through. We want them to be confident about spending the money, because they know it's going to be, their bucket gets filled up every month. It's basically, how do I create a private pension? That's really why so many of us are going to struggle today. Like our grandparents, my grandparents, they had pensions and Social Security. They didn't worry about their income because they had a really nice amount set up each and every month. And it's something that we want to help create that same confidence and that same guarantees, and you've got to do it with guaranteed income from some source.
Right. That's absolutely right.
I was just going to say, it's just so important to understand kind of the age we live in, and the information age is all over us, and we have it at our fingertips all the time, and a lot of it is probably pretty good, but there's some of it that's not. So make sure you're getting advice from someone that knows this business, a fiduciary. It is your retirement. It's your money. Following whims that are on social media, write down questions that you have, get an appointment, talk about it. These appointments are complimentary. Mark, walk us through what's going to happen.
If you're listening to the show and you're wondering, what am I going to do from an income perspective? It's going to be guaranteed. What about taxes? If you're getting ready to retire from Boeing or any of our other great companies in this wonderful Pacific Northwest, you need help, right? You got questions about Social Security. When should I draw? Is 62 going to be a good time? Or should I wait till full retirement age to do that? What about taxes? Should I draw on, my 401k or my 403b before I turn Social Security on? These are the type of questions we know everyone that's listening is thinking about or worried about. And so please pick up the phone, give us a call. If you save $250,000 or more, these strategies are really going to work the best for you. So don't hesitate. Please give us a call.
Complimentary appointment awaits. Call this number, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. No obligation to this. You're not agreeing to become a client. Great way to kick the tires with Elevated Financial Management. Meet the team. And again, this is about planning. This is about being prepared. 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. When we return, it's time for scenarios. I'll throw them at the team, see what they come up with. That's next. On Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts are Mark Stimpson, Casey Elkins, and Steve Flynn. You can find them at Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. The website, it is a resource, efmnw.com, all letters, efmnw.com. There are links to the TV show, radio shows, and podcast form. Great information on retirement and the importance of planning and background information on the team. So get there. That's efmnw.com. 42 plus years combined experience between Mark and Casey, and it's always a pleasure jumping on. They're certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick. And again, about planning, about being prepared. There's going to be an opportunity to get on their calendar. It is a tight calendar. They're very busy at the office, but they've carved out these spots for you, the radio listener. So stay tuned for those. All right, scenarios. These happen all over the country. We've gathered a handful. We'll see how the guys are going to handle them. We also want to remind you, too, that you may have a scenario that's kind of one of the ones we talk about today, but it's not exactly what you're going through. Make sure you take these with a grain of salt. Grab one of our appointments, come in, and talk about your own retirement scenario. All right, so first one up, Casey, you can start us off. They're about to retire $1.2 million spread across a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA, and a taxable brokerage account. What is the smartest order to withdraw from these accounts to minimize taxes over time?
That's a really good question, and it's one that we get fairly regularly. I will say that commonly, just to give like a real direct answer, and then I'll kind of paint with broader strokes, but commonly we pick on the Roth IRA last, right? So that's generally the last bucket that we go to. And the reason behind that is that if we believe taxes are going to go up at some point, right? They're not going up right now. We know that current tax law is currently set, right? That happened with the big, beautiful bill, that kind of thing. But if we believe that taxes are going to go up over the course of our retirement, next 30 years or whatever it is, then realistically, it makes sense to wait on that Roth money the longest. And that allows us to be the most aggressive with those investments as well, because that is our longer term money. Now, the kind of nuance to that, to kind of maybe take a step back and look at it a little bit differently, is if you want to spend the money tax-free in your lifetime, it might be something that you start taking from that bucket earlier, because what we see a lot is we use that Roth money last, but ultimately, we don't build plans where people run out of money at age 75, right? So in that circumstance, if you take it last and you live to full life expectancy, let's say 85 or 90 years old, a lot of that's probably going to go to your kids, right? So it's not necessarily having this huge impact in your lifetime from a tax perspective, but instead might be having a positive impact for them. And that's okay too, as long as that's part of the plan, right? It's not that that's necessarily a bad thing. So now, do you draw from an IRA first or from your individual brokerage account first? There's some nuance to that too, right? Yeah. Because there's capital gains tax to deal with, and how much capital gains to deal with inside of your individual account. What tax bracket are you going to be in? So possibly in the early years of retirement, when you have no other income sources, that might be the time to take from your IRA, because you're going to pay tax on that money no matter what. And so if you don't have any other income sources, that might be the most tax efficient way. Generally it is, but it's not, it's kind of a blanket statement, right? It applies to a lot of people, but not to everybody. I'll say if you have this question, if this is something that you're dealing with, again, it comes back to having a plan, because it's not the same answer for every person. For some
Totally
people,
different.
it makes sense to pull from the brokerage first. For some people that have had a Roth for years and have had great appreciation in that, they can actually create the income from their Roth sooner in their retirement and possibly delay the other investments. So, it really can be worked in any way, but it's dependent on what you need in your circumstance.
Yeah, and this is why they've got to come in, right? We got to get more information. We would have Kelvin put a set of eyes on it as well. We have a CPA in our office. So this is something that everybody needs to think about, because there is no one size fits all. It needs to be looked at with several pairs of eyes sometimes to really figure out what's the best strategy to use. So the bottom line is, I think it's just, it means that we've got to be willing to talk with someone that can do some planning, right? That's what this all boils back to, right? There is no right or wrong answer sometimes, but we've got to be willing to talk to somebody to help you figure out exactly what you're going to need from a tax planning perspective, because it can be complicated sometimes, and you don't want to mess this up, because it could really eat into your pocket a little bit, right? Because you made some bad choices.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
I mean, we're in the middle of scenarios, and it just comes back to, what's going on with you at that particular time and as you plan for retirement. And the key word is it depends, right?
Yep.
I mean, everybody is going to be different. So make sure you have a customized retirement plan. Now, the opportunity to get on the calendar and, go over your own scenario, right? Get your questions answered. If you're just sitting on a portfolio, that is not a plan. If you are going to show up at retirement and just start withdrawing from your accounts, how do you know how much gas is in your tank? You don't know. Have a plan. And if you're halfway down the path and you're frustrated, your appointments are getting moved around, you need a second opinion. Grab one of our appointments. Use it for that. Now, if you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. Call the number 866-668-3625. Limited number of appointments, but they're carved out for you, our radio listener. Grab them right now. 866-668-3625. There's no cost to it. There's no obligation to it. 866-668-3625. Get a better idea of what your retirement scenario is. All right, Mark, we'll start with you. This next one, they're budgeting $500 a month for health care in retirement, but have heard that Medicare doesn't cover everything. How can they plan for big medical expenses without draining their investments?
All I know to this, $500 a month in totality probably isn't going to be enough. Fidelity's big study that just got completed, that study feels you're going to need right around $173,000 to be allocated for medical expenses over a normal life expectancy and a normal medical, where you're not talking major issues that come up, right? We all know if long-term care, where maybe you are needing cognitive help, or you're in a facility where it's got to be locked down because of Alzheimer's or severe dementia, that changes everything, because right now you could be looking anywhere from $13,000 to $20,000 a month, depending on the facility in our area today. What's that going to be in 10 years? See, so we talk about this all the time. If something could blow up a really good plan, it's going to be that, right? It's going to be long-term care. And this is an issue that so many people just don't want to deal with. They don't want to talk about it. It's always going to happen to someone else. But boy, though, you listeners out there right now, many of you might be taking care of a grandparent or a parent right now. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And we don't want our clients to have a plan go completely sideways, because we never address that. We're going to address this with each and every client, because again, these type of things are happening. The problem is nobody wants to talk about it, and very few. I think that the number of people that have taken care of long-term care and actually have a plan is maybe right around 10%. That's it. So the bulk of the people out there are avoiding this and not wanting to talk about it.
That's true. Yeah, and you know what? To be perfectly honest, I don't really want to talk about it either. It's not that it's a fun conversation, right? But that doesn't mean that it's not necessary, right? It is something that needs to be discussed. And when it comes to Medicare, right, if we kind of rewind and let's say we leave the long-term care piece out of it, from a Medicare perspective, that's still confusing too, right?
Yeah.
People don't do I do Med Advantage? Do I do Med Supplemental? What's the pros and the cons? What about Part D for your prescription coverage? There's a lot of pieces to that, and that all really has to be part of a broader retirement plan. And the plans that we really enjoy take care of every single one of these aspects. Now, sometimes a client just doesn't have enough money to plan for long-term care like we would like to, right? That sometimes is the case. And that's kind of a spot that we just have to leave alone if there isn't enough assets there, right? But it's a conversation that you want to have, and if you have an advisor and they haven't talked with you about that, do you really have an advisor, right? That's kind of my thought, right? I mean, if you don't have somebody that's your advisor that's bringing up things that you haven't yet thought about or that you haven't addressed and is helping find solutions for those, to me, that's not really an advisor. It's more of an order taker, right? That's just somebody, you tell them what stock to buy and when to sell. And to be perfectly frank, you can do that on your own. You don't really need somebody for that, right? So I think an advisor really needs to be having these conversations and what are you budgeting for medical and what do all those things look like? And it's got to be part of that broader plan. It really does.
Yeah, look at how many firms don't want to touch taxes, right? They'll tell you, go talk to your CPA or your tax preparer, right? That cannot happen with a true retirement plan because taxes are probably going to be the biggest eroder of our funds. Inflation's right behind it, if not number one. So taxes and inflation have to be part of any plan that we're going to design.
They really do. And so this is your opportunity. If you want to have a plan that factors in inflation and taxes and talks about what long-term care might look like for you, what can be done about long-term care, how much income you can create, what you should do for Medicare. Do you go Med Advantage or Med Supplemental? All those questions are addressed inside of a real retirement plan, and that's exactly what we do day in and day out for folks just like yourself that want to have a plan for retirement. So this is your opportunity to get a written financial plan. We will sit down and build something custom tailored just for you and find out what your needs, what your goals are, and then make the finances fit your life instead of your life fitting the finances. So don't hesitate. Pick up the phone. Give us a shout.
It's about having the total package. And everybody's total package is going to be different. So you need to have these conversations and you need to get all these puzzle pieces we talk about on a weekly basis and get them together in your retirement plan so they fit together, right? And snugly, and that is your retirement plan. Now, if you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. We have a limited number of appointments for our radio listeners, and they're open right now. All you've got to do is call 866-668-3625. There's no cost to this. You're leaving the checkbook at home, right? There's no obligation to this, meaning you're not agreeing to become a client if you call this number and grab one of these appointments. This is a test drive. This is a get to know you. Call right now, 866-668-3625. These will not last long, but you can grab one at no cost, no obligation. Again, 866-668-3625 gets you in touch with Elevated Financial Management for one of those complimentary appointments. Another edition of Elevate Your Wealth is in the books. For Mark Stimpson, Casey Elkins, and Steve O'Flynn, I'm Morgan Patrick. See you on the radio next week.
Investment advisory services offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns is not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. All rights reserved.